Hey guys, Kevin on the Murder for you guys. We're reviewing this is a movie that, of course, is the big Netflix movie of this week. You guys know how great Netflix movies have been as of late, and of course, this week we do have one, and that, of course, is The Outsider. And what The Outsider is about is basically we go back to like 1950s post-World War II, and there is this character who is an American GI named Nick Lowell, and he is kidnapped by the Japanese Yakuza. He doesn't really know what to do. He is quickly approached by them where they basically offer him a proposition to join the Yakuza, and the rest of the movie is basically him just trying to grapple with this decision and what really he needs to do to become part of this group, and that's really all I'm going to say. So The Outsider in general, I'm going to be honest, I was not looking forward to this movie. I mean, especially coming off the heels of something like Mute, which I think is one of the biggest colossal failures Netflix has had in a very long time. There was so much, riding on that film, and the fact that it basically almost completely failed, it is just really devastating, honestly. And because of that, I really did not have much hope for The Outsider, or any Netflix film nowadays. I just don't really have a lot of hope for. Netflix has not been impressing me. They're not really someone that I really am that supportive of at this point. I mean, I always do root for them, but this one just did not look very good. It looked like a direct-to-DVD movie. There was a lot of controversy surrounding this film, and I will say this, The Outsider is not a bad movie. However, it is far from a good movie. This is a very, very problematic film with a very by-the-numbers story, and in general, it's just very, very generic, but we're just getting into it right now, starting off with the cast. Now, of course, one of the biggest appeals of this film is, of course, the cast here. And what I mean by that, I only really mean one actor. That, of course, being Jared Leto. I mean, that's really the only recognizable actor in this movie. And Leto does try. I will definitely say that. He does do a good job here. He just doesn't really have a lot to work with. He is very stilted. He doesn't really emote a lot in this movie. He's very quiet and reserved, and there's just not really much to him. But like I said, Leto, I think, did try in this movie. It just didn't really seem like he fully committed here. Like, he did seem like he was holding back. He did seem like he was kind of bored. And in general, I just did not get the sense that he was as into this role as I think he has with something like the Joker or, the role he played in Blade Runner, where he felt much more in tune with those characters. This one, it just did not feel like he added that much to it, and for me, did kind of fall flat. Everyone else here is pretty much ranged from good to mediocre to pretty bad. All of the Yakuza-type mobsters that Lowell does become acquainted with, they're all suitable. I think they all do play their part pretty well. No one really stuck out to me. No one was really that great. I will say, however, Shiori Kutsuna, who plays Nick's love interest in the movie, I thought was terrible. She was completely out of place here. She really didn't have much emotion or anything. Any time where she's supposed to act like she's in danger, it almost always falls flat, and she really wasn't good at all. Everyone else, like I said, I just thought was average, and there really wasn't anyone that really did stick out to me here. But now let's get to the directing and the writing, because that is definitely the biggest drawback when it comes to this film. I mean, sure, the acting really isn't anything that praiseworthy, but the directing here really is quite confusing. I don't really know what the director was trying to do. There are points in this movie where it feels like it's just trying to be your typical gangster film, something in lieu of, like, something in the vein of, like, Goodfellas or any kind of Japanese mobster film you've seen, which, I'm gonna be honest, I have not seen many of those, so I can't really give you any specific film offhand. It just felt very derivative. Then there are times where it feels like the film is trying to do something. It's trying to add some layers to this character, and it is trying to add some sort of social commentary, so it just does not really know what it wants to be. I did not really feel like it had a set tone, and the directing just really wasn't that great. However, easily the biggest problem in this movie is, of course, the writing, because sure, there is definitely morsels and I think glimmers of a good movie in here, but from a writing perspective, this movie is a pretty big mess, honestly, and there really is a lot of stuff that is very underwritten. especially in regards to Leto's character, because while he does definitely try to infuse a lot of personality and a lot of character into this role, there really is no getting around it. Calling this guy the outsider, I thought was a very apt title, because there really isn't much to him. He is an extremely one-note, very stilted, just very forgettable main character. There really is no point where you're really rooting for him. I mean, he starts off the film, we're immediately just thrusted into his story. I mean, we're kind of just, you know, he gets kidnapped and we're supposed to be on his side for some reason. You don't really know why. There are points in this movie where it feels like he wants to be a Yakuza, yet he doesn't, and it just does not feel like he had one specific arc here. And there are definitely a lot of problems that, for example, they mentioned in the movie how this is a guy who came from nothing. He has like no friends, no family that are waiting for him, and you're thinking, okay, maybe the Yakuza are going to replace that. They're going to become his family. They're going to become someone that he generally grows to care for, and that doesn't really happen here. He starts off, and there's just never really a point where it seems like he's solidified anything. Is he part of this community? You know, it seems like, you know, has he ingrained himself with the community? Is he distancing himself away? There just isn't really any set direction for this character, and it's very hard to connect with him because of that. He just isn't very interesting at all. I really do not care about him as a character, and again, I really do like Leto as an actor, but this is easily one of his most forgettable and just nothing roles yet. There really is nothing to him, and it's unfortunate because it's not like they didn't try to add something, because they do. There are points in this movie where they do try to add something to him. There's a scene where he runs into like one of his war buddies and they have a conversation about like what he's going through, but the movie isn't saying anything intelligent. You would think because he is an American and he's working for the Yakuza, there would be some sort of red herring there where maybe he tries to betray them, or he's told of the dangers of doing that, and just in general, there's just not really much given to him. There's not really much there. The movie doesn't really have anything intelligent to say, and I do think the movie was very lacking in that regard. But also the mobster aspect, there's really not much going on there either. The other characters who are populating the story are just very forgettable. They're very one-note, and there's just not much really given to them. And like I said, as bad as she is, the love story subplot is easily one of the lowest points of this movie. I did not give a shit about this subplot whatsoever. It really only seemed like this character, the character of the main girl he falls in love with, it seemed like the only reason that she was really here is so he had something to latch onto, like someone that he could, have to save, or someone that would become in danger. I never really cared about this romance. Never really felt that imperative to the story, and again, just feel like it was shoved in here because there really wasn't much there. The cinematography really isn't that great here. It's very dark. It's really hard to make out at points, and it just is very bland. There's not really much to it, and just like the rest of the movie, it feels very monotonous. Like, it just feels like the film's very much going through the motions. It's very repetitive, and there's just not really much to it. The score as well, not really much to that. And the editing. This movie is 2 hours long, and it is extremely boring. There are so many scenes that just go on, and they just don't really need to be there. Particularly any scene involving Nick with one of his, American buddies. You think that they're going to play some sort of role in here, but they're in the movie for like one scene. Like, for example, Emile Hirsch, a lot of people are going to be excited to see him. He's in this movie for literally one scene, and I don't even know what the point of him was. It just kind of felt like he was here because they needed to add something to the runtime, and I don't know why this movie needed to be 2 hours. It was so slow, was so boring, and there was rarely a point where I was actually interested in what was going on. In fact, I was pretty bored throughout the majority of this movie. There really wasn't anything that great about it. Like I said, The Outsider, it's just a very forgettable movie. There really isn't much to this movie whatsoever. I really was not a fan of it. I do think that it does have some competent action scenes. It is actually well acted, and Leto definitely is a talented actor. He just keeps to subjecting himself to these very mediocre roles that just isn't really boding well for his career, especially coming off of that Oscar win back in 2013. Just has not really been able to have that great of a role since then, and for the most part, this is probably one of his weakest roles yet, just like the entire movie, which in general, like I said, just feels very empty. It feels kind of like nothing. Honestly, the title The Outsider is a very apt title because it feels less like, you know, sure, he is the outsider in the movie, but we know basically just as much, just as little as he does in the film, and we know just as little about his character as he does about the Yakuza. So at points, we feel like an outsider watching The Outsider. We really do. I mean, that is definitely a very interesting way to look at it, but that's really the best way I can sum it up. There just isn't really much to this movie at all. It's very forgettable. There really is nothing that stuck out to me whatsoever. It's another very mediocre Netflix film, and I am without doubt going to give The Outsider overall a C-. So over, guys, I'm going to review The Outsider. Let me know what you guys thought of this one overall, left your thoughts. And then once again, this movie did nothing for me whatsoever. This is another very forgettable Netflix movie that it baffles me why they signed on to these things. I don't even need to say anymore. You guys know. I've said it 1,000 times. I don't need to say it every fucking movie, but come on, Netflix. You're better than this. I don't need to say this shit anymore, but that's for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.